Hey y'all, Zelda here. I am here to do episode 2 of the moving vlog series. If you haven't watched the other one, my spouse and I have decided to move overseas. So we're moving from where we currently live now in Colorado, and we're going to be landing in France because my spouse is French and American, and all of their family lives in France, in particular their mom, and she's going to scoop us up from the airport, I believe. At this point, that is the current plan. Since the last video, I think it's been 3 weeks actually, because it has been such a chaotic couple weeks. I went out of town and I had a relative that died that I went and helped move all of their stuff out of their place. And it just was very chaotic. I wasn't really able to process how I felt about the move because I had so many other things coming up to process. And I wanted to check in this week, even though I still have the feeling of like, it's not like I've accomplished a whole lot, but I did make a little list of, in the past couple weeks, what have we been focused on for the move? I'm just going to share that a little bit about how we're feeling. My intention is just to be really present and kind of attend to what is coming up during this process and to share this experience with anyone who may benefit from that. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick around. So a big part of what I have been nervous about with the move is getting our animals there. We have 2 dogs and 1 cat. My dog, Evie, they're both our dogs, but primarily Evie is my dog. She's my service dog. And Sesame is primarily my spouse's dog. Then Kava, our cat. I am most nervous about getting all the animals there. I know that it is possible. We have made the decision after looking at and exhausting all the other options to put Sesame under in temperature control animal cargo. We're flying on Air France, which seems to be a good option. We have talked to other people who have done this successfully and their animal is fine and untraumatized. So we are hoping that that is the case. And so we need to get their paperwork done, and 2 of them need to be microchipped. And so we are going through that process. We actually got referred from our vet to a vet that specializes in moving overseas. So if that's something that you are doing, that's something I didn't even know existed, that there were vets specifically that their whole thing is specializing in this paperwork. And that is super helpful because one thing that they did was they really knew the process inside and out in a way that, like, it's not like we didn't know the process. Like, the airline told us what they needed, and France has kind of expressed, like, when you land in Paris, this is what you'll need. But it's really nice to have a vet who's like, yeah, we know this inside and out, and to really walk through what needs to happen. Because that is something that I know that I'm really nervous about. We had to put down a deposit, and it is quite expensive. I think $1,000 basically per pet to be able to go through. I think it's a little bit less than that, but we're just kind of like budgeting that for anything that might come up. And we needed to get a kennel and a cat carrier, and Evie won't have to be in one because she's a service animal. So right now we have done our first interview, which they go over all of the paperwork review, and you have to get all of their documents. And we found out that one of our dogs, Sesame, has 500 pages of her medical history, which is like so much medical history. She has had some surgeries, and we adopted her, and she has some health things, and she's been to different vets, but that seemed very exorbitant. And they thought, like, wow, that's a lot of medical history for a dog. She has been well cared for. So yes, we did the medical paperwork review, and then next step, I guess, is to do the microchipping and the initial exam and to get kind of everything checked out. The thing that I am most nervous about, and apparently there is no way around this, is that they have to overnight the paperwork to you a day before your flight, which is so stressful to me. Really want to know if there's any way around it. But right now I have been assured that, like, yes, it's stressful to everyone, but there's really no way around that piece. If you found a loophole in this so that they were not doing that the night before your flight, that would make me feel so much better to not have that be the case. So I would love to know if you found a loophole around this. But for us, they assured us that this is kind of standard protocol, that it's like 2 or 3 days before the flight, and then they overnight it to you. For us, that's kind of tense feeling because we actually are going to be driving driving because we don't want Sesame to have to go underneath in the cargo on a national flight. So we're driving from Colorado to Boston where our flight will take off. And then we will have rented a car to do that. We'll have all of our luggage, all of our animals. And then in Boston is where they're going to have to overnight it to because that's where we'll be. Luckily, my spouse's dad lives in Boston, so that shouldn't be an issue to get it overnighted there. It feels like there's some at least benefit that it's going to a place where it's not like going to a hotel room, or they said that they could send it directly to the airport. And I just had the travel day from hell, and I really would not trust the airlines to not lose this information. They lost my luggage. So I'm like, no, that is such an important document. I want it going to a house. I want to know when it's going to arrive. I want it to have tracking information so I can like watch it travel to us as we are driving there. So fingers crossed that that goes smoothly. This is something that I'm trying to repeat to myself regularly. There's really no point in me stressing about all these little things in advance. Some of the things, obviously, we need to be prepared and we need to figure out, but we can't control every single variable. And that is very difficult. I'm someone who likes to be prepared and likes to kind of check off the boxes. It is stressful for there to be so many variables that like we won't know more about what problems could present themselves until down the line. And that is just so nerve-wracking to me. And so I'm really hoping that as we have more appointments and figure this thing out, especially with the pets, it will help ease some of my stress because I am really relieved that they specialize in this. So it makes me feel more reassured that they have done this process before. Because that's what I'm most nervous about is I just want my animals to get there. Stuff is just stuff. And like, I love my stuff. And so that is another thing that I've been going through is like, we are essentially going to be living out of suitcases for 6 months to a year as we figure out where we're going to settle longer term. And that is really stressful for me, but it is way more stressful to think about anything with the animals. Like as long as we are all together, like our little family, I think we will be okay. So I'm just kind of repeating that. The other thing that I am really focused on, like going through the visa process application and getting all of the documents apostilled for visa application, for getting our marriage transcribed. That is like a big thing. I got my birth certificate. I think we sent off our marriage certificate, my spouse's birth certificate to get apostilled. Apostles are just not really a thing in the US, but I'm sure that if you're watching this from the US, you haven't had to get a document apostille unless it was for something abroad. And for me, I've lived in a lot of different states, and you have to get the document apostilled in the state that it was issued. So I was born in Wisconsin, and so I need the Wisconsin Secretary of State to apostille my birth certificate, and they did already. But like, our marriage certificate is from Colorado, so we need the Secretary of State in Colorado to apostille our marriage certificate. And then my spouse was in Massachusetts, like it's like all these things. And so I'm like sending off mail and like trying to make sure it's in tracked so I can keep track of which people have received which documents. I'm really glad that I started that part of the process really far in advance. Like, if I went back, I would say, yes, definitely do what you're doing. Start requesting documents at like, you can't do it too early because it can't be like super old. So if you're going to move, you can't do it like a year early. But I think I started doing it like 5 months before I knew we were going to need them. And that way we like started receiving them and I had enough time to send them back, maybe 4 months. But I would be really nervous if I was just starting to get those documents now because who knows how long the mail is going to take, So getting all of the documents apostilled, I had to deal with our first kind of sense of French bureaucracy, so to speak, in terms of dealing with the consulate. In Denver, there is a voluntary consulate. I think it literally is run by someone who is a volunteer, who's like a French national. It is so slow and difficult to get information, and they essentially just communicate with the LA consulate, which I think is the consulate for like the majority of the US. Don't quote me on that. I think maybe it's like the Western and then there's one for the Eastern, but you have a specific consulate that you're supposed to go to if you're in a state in the US. And that is all very confusing. I am not an expert. I recommend you look up. There are lawyers who've done how to get your visa and what documents you need. And there are lots of good resources online. And that's kind of what we're using because we're not paying a lawyer to go through this process with us. In part because my spouse's mom is French and has done this process and kind of knows enough about it that we can use her to like consult with to give us feedback and make sure that we're on the right track. But this voluntary consulate, we were emailing because our marriage was done in Colorado, and in Colorado you can self-solemnize legitimize your marriage. But France is like, that's not a thing. Like, how do we know that you're not related or that you were consenting? Like, there are all these rules marriages have to follow. And so there are a couple states, Colorado being one of them, where sometimes marriages aren't recognized. And so we were trying to figure out if we needed to go in person in the consulate to get remarried or renew our vows so that they could transcribe our marriage so that it was valid for me applying for a spouse of an EU citizen visa, which is what I plan to do when we're in France. It has been just tedious to try and get a response back. I think it took us 3 weeks to even hear anything back. And essentially what they said, they initially sent that information. So we were like, okay, it's not going to be recognized. What do we do? Then we wrote back, how should we proceed? Can we come into the consulate? Because that was one of the things that we found online. 3 weeks back, we hear, just submit it with the documents you have. Okay. So we are going to submit it with the documents we have, knowing that they might not be fully recognized, even though all of those things are true. We are both consenting. We are not related. We did self-solemnize, but not for any sort of nefarious purpose. And we could have gotten married in any state that we wished had we gone and got a marriage license, but we chose to do it in a more private, eloping type of manner. So fingers crossed that they accept that. Otherwise, depending on when they actually get back to us, right now we're waiting for our marriage certificate to get apostilled. We're waiting on the last documents, and then we're going to submit all of that together and cross our fingers and hope that that goes through okay for a visa process and for transcribing our marriage. If not, we're going to have to figure out the next step, whether it's getting married once we get to France, if that is how long it takes. I just don't know what to trust in terms of how long each step of the process is going to take. So I'm really trying to take deep breaths. We have time to figure it out. And I'm trying to just kind of go with the flow, which is not my nature. I'm not type A, but I am autistic and I like to know what's going to happen. And the uncertainty really stresses me out. That is a frustrating process that I imagine if you choose to go through this process, it will probably be for you too, unless you really love filling in forms, which I wish you would fill mine in because I am not. The other thing that I have been tackling little by little is canceling subscriptions. I saw this on a list of what you should do to move abroad, and I thought this was really useful. So I actually went through, I have an iPhone and you can see subscriptions that you pay for through Apple, but I also just went and searched any subscription on my cards, and saw what recurring payments I had, as well as any service that I had scheduled. We have someone come and help with deep cleaning tasks once a month. And I just went through to see which of those will I want to keep and which of those will I want to cancel. So I made a huge list. I mean, it's not super huge. It's a journal page long. And I've just slowly been going through and making sure that I have canceled those little by little. And the ones that I have to reach out, I have reached out and confirmed the last date of service for the people who I am doing that. Also, on a professional note, as a therapist, I have been reaching out and just double checking my responsibility to inform. I accept Colorado Medicaid. I checked in with my billing support and confirmed that I will be able to continue taking Medicaid. So that's really exciting, regardless of my location, as long as I have a dual resident, which is what we're planning on maintaining. Figuring out whether I can use my electronic health record system, which it seems like I will, as well as my professional phone service, which it seems like maybe I won't. I have to call someone and I'm putting that off. So those are the main things that I'm tackling right now. Ooh, the other fun thing that we did was that I downloaded an app called Hyperlingua, which is phrase-based learning app. It's free and I really like it. It was a fun addition to Duolingo. When we get to France, I plan on taking French lessons with a person who speaks French and with a teacher or a class. But right now, because my schedule is pretty full and not as flexible until we go, and I want to prioritize being able to save money before we go, it didn't make sense to fully adjust that. And I wanted to find a remote teacher. And all of the ones I found were already in the EU. So their schedules, because of the 8-hour time difference, were totally offset. So my goal is to hire someone as soon as we get there, as well as find a practice group so I can start learning French more quickly and more devotedly once we arrive. I also think it'll be easier because we'll be around my spouse's family who's speaking French. So hopefully I'll start immersion method picking some things up. But that was a fun step that we took that I feel was really enjoyable to start, experimenting with the learning in a different way and have phrases that I'm learning, that kind of thing. In terms of all of these tasks, one thing that I've been working with a lot is managing overwhelm, being able to just reassure myself that there's nothing I can do about certain variables, and I'm just going to have to trust that I'm going to be capable of figuring them out when the time arises. I've been really leaning on trusting and supporting my good spirits. That's part of my own practice, is feeling like my spiritual supports have my back and that I'm going to do my due diligence to handle the responsibilities, but that I can trust that those things are going to also be working in support of us, as well as really trying to ground into trust. And my spouse shared the word determination the other day, and that felt really good because their anxiety generates ideas of like worst case scenarios to try and deal with them in advance. But realistically, some of those things probably aren't going to happen. If they are major worst case scenarios, we are trying to attend to those, right? Like we are trying to attend to like, what do we do if the consulate doesn't get back or our marriage can't get transcribed and we do have to get remarried? And we're trying to think of like the backup options for that. But like, what do we do if the thing is lost in the mail? It's not going to get lost in the mail. I'm trying to put that out there too. Like I'm trying to just trust that it's not going to happen. That's one. But the second part is just trusting and like asking for support and being determined that like we are going to figure out a way to make this happen. We're going to make it work together as a team. And so that has felt really good too, to like round into just feeling connected. And overcoming challenges in a partnership is something that I really cherish and that I really love about being with my spouse. We've been together for 11 years, and I just feel like the things that we have persevered through have been so much more enjoyable of learning experiences for having gotten to do them together. And of course, I've gotten to do things on my own, like getting through grad school, getting through health challenges, but many of those we have done as a team. And I really love that. I really love being part of a team. It's something I always wanted, is to have a long-term partnership. So going on an adventure like this as a team is something that I'm really trying to feel grateful for, because it's something that I value and appreciate. A practical tool for managing the overwhelm is that my spouse created this shared Google Doc, because one thing that is true is when I'm anxious, I start listing almost like the worst case scenarios. I'll list like, oh, we have to do this and we have to do this. And that's really stressful for them. So I started being able to put it in this Google Doc, and then they can check it when they actually have the bandwidth. If you're doing this as a team or even with yourself, so that your future self can do that and it's not just like floating around. I think I'm going to move over to Proton Mail for our shared documents and everything, because they have a similar kind of suite to Google, but I think most people know what a Google Doc is. We made it so that it had tabs and that you would list the task itself, and then whether who is assigned to it, like assigning one of us, or if it's a shared task, and then whether there's a firm due date, and then whether it started, and then a little area to fill in like what was the last thing accomplished, right? And so like the pet thing, okay, we have that piece. It's in progress. We're currently waiting to hear back. We have the appointment scheduled for this date. So that's kind of how it looks. And there's lots of different ones, like which documents are out getting apostilled, which ones we're gathering, which subscriptions, that type of thing. So that's been really helpful for, if not decreasing the overwhelm, always organizing it and then compartmentalizing it, because that is a big part of this. Is we also want to and need to continue living our lives in a way that is sustainable. We also have a lot to do. I am really trying to stay grounded in the present moment. I think it's about 8 weeks out. I mean, I don't think it's exactly, it might be like 9 weeks, because it is the end of June and we're moving in the first week of September. It's 2 months, 2 months away, 2 full months until we move. And that feels so crunchy. Oh my God. I feel like that's like not very much time. But realistically, we are going to be able to do the things that we need, and anything that doesn't get done, we're just going to have to deal with that then. And I don't want to spend those whole 2 months stressing when I could also be appreciating this moment and this experience. So things that I've also been doing to manage the overwhelm is I have started talking to my friends and community about the fact that I'm going. This has really helped me ground into some grief and joy practices of getting to, maximize the time, not in pushing myself beyond my boundaries, but encouraging myself to really say yes when my friends invite me to go for a walk or grab coffee or have a phone call. Really encouraging myself to be present with my emotions. It has been challenging, but really to like be present with my emotions of when I go for my daily walks, really appreciating and loving the ecosystem and the animals and the flowers that are blooming, and how much I'm really going to miss that, but also how much I enjoy having that and how much I will enjoy visiting that, because it is not like we will never come back to this area. That's not our experience. Maybe this isn't applicable if you are moving, picking up roots, you don't have family that you're ever going to visit there, but that's just not our experience. We have family and friends, and our goal is not to never return, but to expand and be able to go somewhere new. And who knows, maybe we will not come back as much as we thought, but that's just how I'm orienting to it. Taking deep breaths, grounding into my spiritual practices. I do think that we're going to start making a list. This is the next thing, is we want to start making a list of what to bring. I've really been contending with the fact of we're not bringing all of our stuff with us at first. So what are we going to bring? And we don't have a ton of room, and there are lots of things that actually feel kind of important. So I am going to be starting to make a list of like the things that we definitely want to bring, the things that we will want to bring eventually. So things we want to prioritize bringing if we do like a trip in between, what we want to like make sure that we get to us, as well as things that we're not going to bring ever, and that we want to have like a list of things that we want to get, like kitchen appliances that we use all the time, but we're not going to like ship them even. It doesn't make sense. Anything that is an electronic that we can't really get a converter for because the power plugs and everything are different, and even like wattage, like the voltage. I don't know about electricity. Don't cite me on this one. So yeah, I miss my books and my crystals and my 8 million tarot decks, my altars. I'm really planning on building a travel altar that I can set up at our space wherever we are, as well as prioritizing a work setup that's going to be really grounding for me so that I can make sure that I can drop in and be fully present with my clients wherever we are. So those are big things that I'm focused on now, in addition to continuing to prioritize getting the pets settled and ready to come with us as we go on this adventure. I think that's all that I had to share with you this time. I, as always, would love to hear any advice that you have if you've made a big trip like this before. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Bye for now.